Hello, welcome to Web of Stories. My name is Melinda and I am finally here with my 1,000 subscriber Q&A. I hit 1,000 subscribers in January when a post I did went viral for some reason. So welcome to everybody who is here. I think I'm at 1.225 right now. I don't know. Welcome to y'all. And I asked for questions and I got a bunch. And I do want to do a quick apology really quickly. So January ended up being kind of a bad month for me on booktube wise because I have a knee thing and it was uncomfortable to sit. So I wasn't kind of behind the computer a lot on booktube. So I had to kind of go through and comb through and find these questions. If I missed any, I am very sorry. I'll do it if I need to, I'll do a second video of all the questions I missed. So there you go. I did put these, I don't know, in some kind of order. I don't know what order they're in. So I'm just gonna go through them. And the first, and I will tag everyone who has a channel who asked me questions down below. So if you want to go check them out, which I highly recommend you do, you can. So the first question is from Sarah at Eyes on Indie. And she says, if you could instantly master reading in any language, which would you choose and why? Spanish. So I was just talking about this last night at book club. When I was going to school, you could start taking Spanish middle school, or you could do French, German, whatever, or in Spanish. You can start it in high school. And I wanted to start Spanish in middle school, and my mother said no, because apparently it was not a good thing to do Spanish. So I had to wait till high school to start French. French has not been especially useful for me. I do not live in Canada. Also, it's not even useful if I were going to go to Canada because they taught you Parisian French, but whatever. So I am trying to learn Spanish now on Duolingo and Drops and Pimsleur and all those things. Where I live, we have a very large Spanish-speaking population. So I see Spanish all around my town. Like, Spanish is there. The kids' schools are bilingual. And I have had instances where I have had, I've met, my light's blinking, I'm sorry. Where, there's been a language barrier. My church is going to become a bilingual church. That's a whole thing. I'm sorry, I'm going to turn this off because it's driving me crazy. There we go. So I'll have a lot more of interactions with people whose Spanish is their primary language. So I've been really trying to learn Spanish. So I would say Spanish. I think that question really has more to do with speaking the language than reading it. But yeah, Spanish. Question number 2. This was the first question I got, and it was like, this should not be an easy question to answer, but it is. They're apparently going to make noise. Sorry about that. And this is from Priscilla at Evening Reader. What's a book you regret reading and why? And I have 2. The reason I have 2 is I had one, and then I read another book that overtook it. So I have a runner-up and my answer. My runner-up, which was my original answer, is Christ Our Lord Out of Egypt by Anne Rice. I was never a big Anne Rice reader, but I was curious about that book when it came out. Anne Rice, if you remember, went through this period where she rediscovered Catholicism. And she became very Catholic for a while, and then she decided not to be Catholic. I don't know. I'm not a huge Anne Rice person. But she came out with this book, and I was very curious. Admittedly, I went into this book expecting not to like it, because I knew what Anne Rice wrote, and applying, vampires and erotica, maybe vampire erotica, I don't know, to a story about Jesus seemed really weird, but I'm going to do it. So I read it. And yeah, it was bad, but not in the way I expected. I expected it to be very salacious and lurid. But I was about halfway through when I started thumbing through the rest of the book, waiting for the vampires to show up, because it was the dullest book I have ever read in my entire life. I don't think I can describe it any better than a line from the Washington Post review of this book, which was, Anne Rice has sucked the life out of the greatest story ever told. It was terrible. So that was my answer to this question for a long time. But then I read another book, and that book was Cleaving by Julie Powell. So Julie Powell wrote Julie and Julia, and which was made a movie out of it. And I read Julie and Julia, and I really liked the idea of the blog, that whole thing. I think that book actually got me started into blogging. So I kind of liked that idea, but I didn't really like her, but whatever. And then the movie was made, which was an adaptation of 2 books, Julie and Julia and My Life in France by Julia Child, and Julie Powell was played by Amy Adams, and Amy Adams is just such a likable person that it was easier to take Julie Powell. But then Julie Powell came out with this follow-up book, and it is a memoir. I'm going to start off by saying Julie Powell she is deceased, a fantastic writer on a sentence level. She could write. I'm not going to criticize the writing level. I'm going to criticize her as a person. And I know that's horrible to say, but here you go. This book was about a period in her life after Julie and Julia took off and she's dealing with fame. And the way she chose to deal with fame was to take up butchery, being a butcher, fine, whatever, and basically screwing anything that moved. Yeah. And even that, like, yeah, not ideal. Now, I will say, if you are a vegetarian or you know, like a body horror thing, whatever, just on that level, don't read this book because, again, she is a good writer and her descriptions of butchering meats are very vivid. So, I mean, that's probably a plus thing, but definitely a trigger warning. The whole book's a trigger warning, don't worry. But this whole thing, she was like, you know, she was married at the time, and she was married to the same husband until the end of her life. They never separated. But during this time, she had a boyfriend and a lot of other liaisons, and it was just, and so much of it was, my life is so horrible, I have to do all these things. I'm like, you have instant fame, you have instant success at a career you always wanted, and your life is horrible. And I understand that fame can add difficulties to your life, but you deal with them in a different way. And the breaking point to me was at one scene where she's in an alley with some random dude who, if I remember correctly, she didn't even know his name, and they are having some fun together. And then she's realizing she should feel guilty that she's cheating on her boyfriend. And I'm like, but what about your husband? And she was just awful. This was oh man, my 1-star review of that on Goodreads, I still get likes on. I mean, that book was terrible. So those are my 2 answers to that one. All right, my next 4 are from Pat at Book Chat with Pat. Okay, you do so many wonderful long-term reading events. Why, thank you, Pat. What do you have in mind after you get through all of Shakespeare? So I had actually been thinking about this. So I think, if my math is right, and nothing, in case nothing comes up, I should be finishing with the Shakespeare project at about the time I finish reading through all of Agatha Christie's novels. I should finish those at around the same time. And what I was thinking at that point is I might start over with Agatha Christie, but more like in the Shakespeare way where it's more random, and do it, because I'm doing Agatha Christie pretty much on my own, and maybe do that more as a group thing, because I do feel like with Agatha Christie, you have different experiences with it. You have the first time you read the book and you figure out the puzzle and the mystery, and so much of reading the book is involved in that. And then if you read it again for a second time, you can start concentrating on the characters and exactly the mechanics of how things work. And so I actually was thinking of maybe starting over with Agatha Christie and doing that more as a group thing, but I'm not sure. I have at least 2 years before I have to make a decision with that, but that's kind of what I was thinking. Okay. Second, are there any genres you haven't really explored that you are hoping in the near future? I don't think so. The only one that would have been an answer for me would be romantasy, but I have already read a romantasy book this year. I read Road of Bones by Demi Winters with commenter Katie Sykes, and yeah, I read it, and now I can say I've read a romantasy. I enjoyed my experience reading the book. It's not a book that's going to live in my mind for a long time, and that's fine. And I don't really think romantasy is going to be a genre I read a lot of, which is also fine. You find what works for you. But that's the only thing I really thought of that would have, I think that, because I'm willing to try, there are a couple things that genres I refuse to read, and I might have a question like this later, so I'll refer back to this. Like, one is like those really, really, really dark romances that maybe don't treat consent the same way. Like, I wouldn't read those. So there are those certain genres that I just won't read because I know they're not going to be for me. But anything else, I'm very open to trying. So I think I've tried everything We'll see. Now there's some genres I would like to be better at, or be a little more well-read, or find my way into a little bit more. Science fiction is one, and fantasy is another one. I didn't read those growing up, so I'm kind of coming from a different place with it. And I would like to kind of get into those a little bit more. Oh, I put the same question twice. She actually only asked me 3 questions. Sorry about that. The last question Pat asked me, what are some of your favorite literary characters of all time and why? I love, let's see, we have the ones that are very expected. I love Anne of Green Gables and Emily of New Moon, Armand Gamache. Oh, I love Armand Gamache. I like Cork O'Connor, who's a little more rugged. He's not a perfect guy. Let's say he's done some dumb things, but he's a little bit more rugged. Especially with mystery series, I have to like the characters that are in it to continue reading it. So of course I'm going to like characters like Armand Gamache and Cork O'Connor. Amari from Amari and the Night Brothers, there's a great character. A lot of these characters are from children's and juvenile fiction, I've realized, which makes sense. Trying to think what's on my shelf that I love. Those are the ones that really stick with me off the top of my head. As you know, I am a big Bronte fan. Hi, March on the Moors is coming in March. I really like the more complicated female characters that you get. I like Jane in Jane Eyre. I like Helen in The Tenant of Vaudeville Hall because they're very nuanced and complicated, and I like those. Can't say that I'm really there with the characters in Wuthering Heights. I think Wuthering Heights is a very different kind of book. And I don't read it necessarily for the characters themselves, but that's fine. So yeah, I do like the complicated characters. I do like female characters to overcome things. I got a big pile here. I just finished this book, and I loved the main character in this book, Aduni, and the girl with the louding voice, and I am going to be reading the sequel to it. That's another one that I loved because she's the voice I needed right now. I needed that, like, I am going to succeed voice, but yeah. So we have those. And Michelle Lynn reads, what are your favorite videos to make? So that is kind of a hard one. I do like I like doing the weekly wrap-ups because that's just kind of like my catching up and telling you what's going on, and it's very conversational. I like those. Book hauls I like because they're easy because I just have to tell you what I brought. But then I also have this edge of guilt with it because I've usually bought way too much. So there's that. And then there's book haul revisits, which are also fun because I see what I've read, but then also sometimes I haven't read as much as I thought I would have. So there's a double-edged sword with haul videos, but I do like the weekly wrap-ups. The TBR Pile of Possibility videos are also fun too, but sometimes they are complete fantasy. They are delusional sometimes, but I do like doing those because I like thinking that I'm going to read all these books, even if I don't get around to it. I now have 2 questions. Well, Mariandra gave me 2 questions, but I'm going to save one for the last. So the first question she asked me was, do you have a favorite cookbook? And I had to think about this because I used to love to cook. I love trying new recipes. I love cookbooks, all that. But then I had kids and then they formed opinions, and now I just don't like cooking anymore. Sad but true. But I do have some that I like. Let's see. How am I going to start with this? So this is one that my husband got me. And so really I should say this is probably his. And I like this one because the recipes are just simple. And they also are recipes that are good for potlucks and things like that. And this is a Better Homes and Gardens one. And it's 9x13, the pan that can. When I'm making big things like this, like I do, we have church potlucks and such, this is a great option. I can find a lot of options in this book, and then you just bring the pan and it's all good. In fact, I need to pull this out because I've been making the same thing over and over again. And I have like 4 9x13 pans, so it works well. And then this one was written by a friend of mine. Her name's Ivy Manning. She's written several cookbooks, but lately she has gotten into writing for Instant Pot. Her cookbooks before Instant Pot were really good, but sometimes they were a little aspirational. Like the recipes were a little bit complicated, but her Instant Pot ones are really good. This is her first one. She has 3, I think she has this one, and then she has like a family dinners one, which is also really good. And then she has like an Italian food one, which is good, but I haven't done as many recipes out of it. But we have some family recipes from here, that all-time favorite family recipes that come from here. And the Instant Pot is one of those things that is like a lifesaver for me. So this is it. And I do continually go to this one looking for new recipes. There's a brisket recipe in here I'm going to try. I'm going to try that brisket recipe soon. Anyway, sorry. And then these two are a little bit odder. This one's a little off the wall. This is The Last Word on Lefse by Gary Legvold. If you don't know what lefse is a Norwegian flatbread made from potatoes, and it looks like this. It is, I don't know how widespread it is to eat it in Norway, but in the upper Midwest in the United States and among Norwegian Americans, and my mother's Norwegian American, was a Norwegian American, essentially. She was Irish and Norwegian, but they had a housekeeper who was from Norway, so she was raised as a Norwegian American. Lefse is a big deal. And when I was working at Boston University, I took some graduate level classes in gastronomy. You know, I just said I don't like to cook, and I'm like, I was going to get a master's degree in gastronomy. So yeah, things do change. But I wrote a paper on lefse. And lefse actually is responsible for a lot of the population in the United States. Let me explain. The potato is not something that's native. Well, it's not native to Europe, but it's definitely not native to Scandinavia. And when it came to Scandinavia in like the early 19th century, late 18th century, it's something that actually can grow well there, but also it's very nutrient packed. So when that became part of the cuisine in Norway, they had a population growth because people were healthier and they could feed them. It's super easy to grow potatoes. And they're nature's antidepressant. They're wonderful. And it got to the point where Norway couldn't support the population it had because people were living longer and having more kids who lived and all this. And then at about the same time, the Homestead Act in the United States started, where you could go in and get 160 acres, I think is what it was. And if you could improve it and live on it for 5 years, it was yours for free. And the thing about lefse is a way to eat potatoes. So they would make this flatbread about it, and then they dry it. And then this bread would last them to get from Norway on the ship over to America. And then, of course, again, potatoes grow. You can grow potatoes pretty much anywhere. And so there are more people of Norwegian descent in the United States than there are in Norway. And a lot of that is because the lefse kept them alive over the ocean. And now, at least in our family, lefse is a Christmas treat. I haven't made it in a long time. I used to make it with my mom, but my husband is from a town in Washington called Polsbo, which was settled by Norwegians. He's not Norwegian, and he find it really ironic that he left Polsbo and then he married a Norwegian girl. But they have these little stores where they sell the lefse, and his father brought some lefse down for us for Christmas. And the way we eat it is you put butter, like slather. You slather butter on it, and then you put cinnamon sugar and you roll it up. That's like a Christmas treat that we have now with lefse. And then this is a book that it was my mother's, and I snagged it. The first time I went back, there's a recipe in here. Not a recipe I'm going to make. That's okay. After she died, I got her recipe box, which was a disaster. That's a whole other story. But I also got some of her cookbooks, and I got this one. And this is North Country Cabin Cooking. So North Country is like Minnesota. My mother was born and grew up in North Dakota, but she spent summers in Minnesota on Little Pine Lake in Perham, Minnesota. And my brother, spends summers on Battle Lake in Ottertail Lake in Battle Lake, Minnesota. So a lot of these are the kind of food that you get from there, and it is comfort food. My mother's fish fry walleye recipe is in here. Not that I would ever make it, because we don't really have walleye out here. I mean, you can get walleye here. They have found walleye in the Columbia River and in like Eastern Oregon and Eastern Washington. They are not native to that area. But walleye is the kind of fish you would catch in the lake there. But the recipe she always used to make it is from here. And it has those wonderful desserts like cornflake bars and lazy day bars. You know, there's just Norwegian American cooking. So there's a Norwegian American theme there. But yeah, so those are some cookbooks that I love. I'm going to skip that one. Okay, Jess at Just Book Girl TV asked, what type of music do you listen to while reading? Generally, I don't. So in a perfect world, I would read in silence. However, I do not live in silence. I have a very noisy family. So I generally put my noise canceling headphones on and I listen to the little Pomodoro timer I have. I can use like nature sounds, so I'll put those on. Sometimes though, there is a Spotify playlist that's like music for reading, which is all instrumental. I have also read books that, for example, The Violent Conspiracy by Brendan Slocum. He put out a Spotify playlist that matches the book. Those are always fun. I can't listen to music with words when I'm reading. So that's like a no-go right there. Like if there's any kind of human voice in it, I can't listen to it. But instrumental music, kind of quiet instrumental music. There you go. But generally, if it were up to me, I would not be listening to music while I read. I just sometimes need to block the other people in my house out. Okay, then Hannah at Savage Reads asked, what are my hobbies aside from reading? Well, not cooking, I'll tell you that much. I love to hike. I have not been hiking lately because my kids hate to hike and they whine. It's not fun. I don't know how much hiking I'm going to get in the future because of the knee issues. I need to get that straightened out. I think part of, people have asked, this is not a question on here, but what's up with my knee? We're not quite sure. What I think happened is I was dealing with sciatica and sciatica-like stuff. And in dealing with that, because I had to scale back a lot of physical activity during that, I think I need to build up the strength in my knees. But I also have some muscle strain. It's just, I don't know. And I go to the doctor and she doesn't know. So whatever. I just need to get through it. But it's just a painful thing. What happened most recently was I was stepping off a curb and I'm stepping down on my good leg. And as my not good leg bent as I was stepping down, all the muscles in my leg seized and I could barely walk, which was hard because I was carrying a pizza. To carry the pizza across. But anyway, that's not what the question was. Hobbies besides reading. So hiking in a perfect world. I love to go to the theater. I love live theater. I am not a big television watcher. I enjoy movies when I watch them, but I don't watch them that often. My husband is he's very, I shocked him this morning. I think I shocked and disappointed him because I'm filming this on Super Bowl Sunday. And we were talking about the Super Bowl. Some random guinea pig on Facebook predicted the Eagles would win. That's what started this. And then I said I wasn't going to watch the Super Bowl this year. And he was like, what is wrong with you? And I said, I'm going to read. And he's like, well, if that's what your priority is. I said, yes, that is what my priority is. But yeah. So I don't watch a lot of television, but I do enjoy movies when I see them. I prefer to see them in the theater because there's just so many distractions at home, although it is easier to see them at home. That being said, I've been meaning to watch Conclave for weeks and haven't yet. If I should go to a theater, I would just see it. I used to love doing puzzles, but I have this problem that my cat starts to think the box of the puzzle pieces is a litter box, so we can't do that. That's bad. I do enjoy traveling. I am a road trip junkie. I love road trips. And we haven't done as many as we'd like recently. It's hard, when you have kids because they have to be in school. Our most recent road trip was not especially a fun one. It was our unplanned road trip from Arizona back home, spring break last year, when we all got COVID and we couldn't fly. So there was that. But I do really enjoy road trips and travel. And other than that, I spend a lot of time driving my kids around. So yeah, there you go. Those are some hobbies that I have. I used to crochet. I did knit. I'm not very good at it. I used to crochet a lot, but I just haven't lately. I don't know. I've even got some yarn I could crochet and I just haven't done it, but there you go. By Fred, read by Fred. Has your booktube channel inspired your family members to read more? No. And it drives me crazy. My daughter used to be a really big reader, and when she was in a private school, I'm not going to say what grade she was, but because her teacher was a nice person, but the school, it was great if you were right on your grade level, but if you're below your grade level or ahead of your grade level, like my daughter, it was not a good place for you. And since Lily was ahead of everything, she was just told to read a book while everyone caught up. And so she got so sick of that like forced reading that it kind of got her out of reading. I'd love for her, I'm hoping at some point in her life she goes back to it. And my son swears that he doesn't like reading, but every time he has to read a book at ELA, he gets totally excited about it. So I think he's actually a reader, but he doesn't want to admit it. I need to get him off the video games, and that would help greatly. I would love for my husband to be a reader, not so much that I have these dreams of us laying in bed reading together, but because he would understand that I don't want to talk to him when I'm reading. Like, him sitting down and starting to have a conversation with me while I'm reading is not cool. And the fact that I prefer to read than watch the Super Bowl is an okay thing to do. And maybe I should have some more bookshelves. That's a thing too. Maybe he would recognize that. But no, I am really the only reader in my family right now, which is incredibly unfortunate. Okay. I am going to go to this one next. Is also from Fred. How has BookTube changed the way you read? I have done a lot more buddy reading and group reading. I had never done that. The only kind of social reading I had done before joining BookTube was book clubs, which is not that. So, you read the book and then you meet together and discuss it. But the idea of discussing books as you're going along, I had never done before. And I love social reading. I love to be able to do that. I'm doing a book right now with Katie Sykes. We're reading The Conductors. I'm actually planning to finish it today, so that's coming up. And I have at least 2 more book club. I'm going to do another book buddy read this month with Bookish Best Friend, and then with Priscilla at Evening Reader. We need to schedule that, Priscilla. So I love doing buddy reads. Also the readathons, and I've gotten more this year, especially. I have really focused in on trying to celebrate when you have your heritage months, like this is Black History Month. I am trying to read at least 50% of my books by African American authors. I can't do 100% because I have other things going on, and there's no way I can twist it so that Agatha Christie and William Shakespeare are African American. I just can't. But really, I'm trying to amplify those voices because there's so many forces in our country right now that's trying to silence them. So I'm trying to amplify them. I am, if you see my community page, but also on Instagram and on my Facebook page, I am every weekday this month, I am promoting a book by an African-American author. And I've gotten a lot of really good feedback from that. So doing things like that, that's something that's really changed with BookTube. Okay. What is the most important thing you've discovered about BookTube since joining? In a lot of ways, BookTube has restored my faith in humanity, especially in social media, because booktubers are just generally good people. They're nice people. I know I hear rumors of BookTube drama. I have never been a part of it. I know I have gotten a few kind of comments, but they're not from people who normally comment on my videos, probably have never seen any of my videos before, or they're on shorts. I don't do shorts because I just think shorts are dumpster fire on YouTube, but generally, almost without exception, and the only exception is being these random comments from people I've never seen before and never seen again. And even those don't happen very often, but almost always booktubers are just supportive, and it's not competitive. It's just supportive, being there for you, good people things. And I love that because there are not a lot of places on social media that are like that. Okay. And here's this question that, Fred, I got to talk to you about this question. PB&J, 1 slice of peanut butter and another slice of jam, or both slices of peanut butter and jam in the middle. How do you even do that? I would think if you put the peanut butter on and then the jam on top, the jam would kind of go bleh, and it wouldn't stick. But if you have peanut butter on both sides of the bread, and jelly in the middle, the ratio is off. I don't understand that. No, of course, peanut butter and jelly. Like, what? Fred, is this a Canadian thing? I don't know. I don't know. I just don't understand. I mean, more power to you if you do your jam, peanut butter jam in the middle. More power to you. I just don't understand it. It's kind of like the bookshelves that are organized in a rainbow. It's like, if it works for you, fabulous. I don't get it. I would never do it for myself because I don't understand it. Like, how do you find things? But like the jam, how do you even do that? I don't understand the logistics of it. So yes, I'm a peanut butter on one side, a jam on the other. And thank you for such a great question, Fred. Okay, now we have some questions from Ellen at Ellen Made Book Club. What is your favorite video that you've done? And I have racked my brains and I honestly can't think of one. I did a video early on that was cathartic. It was really early on, like within maybe a month or two of me starting this channel. And it was like authors I will not read anymore. And that was just really a cathartic video to do. I'll see if I can find it and tag it down below. But that one just reminds me because I just had to get something off my chest. There was another one, same idea. I had like a head cold or something or allergies and I just was in a bad mood because of it. And everything was irritating me. So I just did a video of things that were irritating me and I felt so much better afterwards. And then Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading took it and made it into the I'm So Annoyed book tag. So that was kind of fun too. But for some reason, just because, they were stream of consciousness, I just have something to get off my chest sort of things. It felt good to do those. I don't know if I'd say they're my favorite, but I will say they definitely gave me the most instant satisfaction. Okay. What is a video / project / series of yours that you wish would get more views, engagement, or attention? So this is one I wish would get more views, although I understand why it doesn't. I cannot complain about the engagement, but those are my Shakespeare videos. So if you look at the views on my videos, those always have the fewest views. And I get it. I totally get it. Shakespeare is not for everybody. But I would like it to be for more people. So I do wish more people watch those. But the interesting thing about those videos is I almost always have the same number of comments on those videos as I have on videos that get 200 views. Like, the engagement is much higher on those. So that's good, But yeah, I would just like more people to be reading Shakespeare. There you go. We'll see. We'll see how the Brontes go. I might, if people kind of like poo-poo the March on the Moors, I might say the Brontes next. But a lot of people have said they want to do that. So there you go. This is a very similar question to one above, but what is something you learned about yourself since starting the channel? Mine is that I enjoy group reading and I talk way too fast. Those two things. But yeah, the social reading I do really enjoy, and it's not something I had ever even considered doing before being on BookTube, and I find it really fulfilling. So, okay. Has having a channel impacted you in any way in your life other than perhaps reading more and making BookTube friends? I actually think that BookTube, watching it and making videos and then focusing more on reading has led to me not watching any, at this point, very much television, which is a good thing. At least for me. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything bad about television. I'm saying my own practice of television is it became a veg out sort of thing. So it's probably a good thing that is not the case anymore. That now when I do watch television, I want to watch this thing and then I am done, as opposed to just turning the TV on and vegging in front of it. And it might just be a time thing. Like, I'm doing all this BookTube, but now I don't have time to watch television. I don't know. But I do think that's something that has really improved my life. Okay. Final question from Ellen. I'd love to hear some of your favorite travel destinations or experiences, or where you could see yourself living if for some far-fetched reason you felt like you didn't want to live in the United States. I wonder why. Favorite travel destinations. So, I loved going to Minnesota when I was a kid. We went every summer. I've gone a couple times as an adult now that my brother has a place, and it is just very relaxing and nostalgic and fun. One of my favorite trips of all time was when I was 15 years old, and then for spring break, my parents and I went to Washington, D.C. and Virginia, and that's when I first toured William and Mary, and I decided that's where I wanted to go to college, which I did. So those are domestic. For my honeymoon, well, I've been to Europe 3 times. The first time was when I don't know, was a sophomore in high school, and my mom and I went, and that was fun. It was on a tour, so it's really, you didn't have a lot of freedom. You just went where they went to, but it was fun. And then I did a summer term in England between my junior and senior year in college, which was fantastic. And then my honeymoon, we started in Norway and all worked our way down to Italy, to Rome, and then went to Greece. That was great fun. A little tiring, but great fun. So yes, I do really enjoy traveling. My husband and I travel together really well. I talked about road trips and how much I love road trips. We grew up in very polar opposite road trip type families. My father was he's retired. He's still alive, but a long distance truck driver. So road trips were getting from point A to point B in the most efficient and fastest way possible. And you only stopped to pee if he had to pee. That was it. I mean, it was like, boom, you get to where you're going. And my husband grew up in a family where you might get to where you're going at some point, or you might end up someplace else, and it might take you 5 days, or it might take you 3 hours. Who knows? It's all very, whatever. And we both had our frustrations about that. So we've come together and met in the middle. And we are the perfect road tripping pair. So it's just fantastic. So I love road trips. Most of our road trips lately have been, well, other than the unplanned one, been around Oregon. When the kids were a little younger, we did one to the Midwest and back. One issue with road trips is they tend to take a little bit longer because you're traveling. It takes longer to travel. And with my husband's work schedule, sometimes we just can't work it in. But yeah, we do love road trips. Now, where could I see myself living if for some far-fetched reason I felt like I couldn't live in the United States? Strangely enough, I have been contemplating this one. So, let me start with this about where I can live. I have gone through this in my mind. As for where I can live in the United States, I can live in the state of Oregon where I live now. That is it. Because I have to live in a blue state. I've already lived in the Northeast and I've done that. I don't want to do that again. I have altitude issues. I get altitude sickness really easily. So Colorado is out. Hawaii needs to remain a vacation spot. Minnesota, Illinois, Wisconsin, which even those are kind of a little purpley, but bluish. Winter. There's a winter thing going there. California is full of California problems. Washington is full of my in-laws. So I can only live in Oregon. So if I could not live in Oregon, as I said, I'm learning Spanish. So the only language I speak fluently is English, and my French is super rusty, and I'm learning Spanish. But I would love to live in the UK. I've always been an Anglophile. I would live in Canada. I say that I would live in Canada, but my bookish best friend is actually Canadian, and she's like, Canada has its issues too. Just saying. However, she's from Alberta, and it sounds like a lot of the problems are in Alberta, so I don't know. Maybe Canadian viewers can tell me if she's wrong on that. But I would, if I had to live in Europe, I would want to live in the UK or Ireland, or if I spoke Norwegian, Norway. When we went to Norway and we got on a train, I found out at a later date what happened is that we got on a silent car on a train, but no one was talking to each other. And my husband was completely freaked out like this because he's really extroverted and I'm not. And I'm like, I have found my people. I have found my people. We can sit on a train and not talk to each other. So if I spoke Norwegian, although most people in Norway speak English, so I don't know, maybe. But Norway's super expensive, super, super expensive. But they do eat a lot of pizza there. So I don't know. There you go. Okay. Becca at Read Becca. What is your favorite tea, or if you don't drink tea, your favorite snack? I do drink tea. I don't drink as much tea as I used to because I started drinking coffee in my 40s. But I do drink tea. I am, as far as a black tea person, I am an English breakfast tea person, not a Earl Grey. I don't know what it is, but I don't particularly care for Earl Grey tea, but I do love a good English breakfast tea or something in that realm. There is Harney & Sons has a tea called Florence, I think it is. And when I go have tea with like Bookish Best Friend and my daughter, I like to get that one because it's nice and chocolatey. And sometimes when you put a little bit of cream and a little bit of sugar in it, it tastes like hot chocolate. But I usually drink my tea black. My favorite tea, well, and then lately, I should tell you what I've been drinking lately. I've been drinking Harney & Sons again. They have Murder on the Orient Express tea, which is English breakfast tea, but a little spicier. And then they also have Williamsburg gingerbread cake, which is a very gingery black tea. So you have to be okay with a little bit stronger, spicy teas, but that one's really good. And then I also have the Apple Orchard that's like inspired by Louise May Alcott's house. And that one's an herbal tea, so it's decaf. And that one's really good. But my favorite tea, which I don't have, I should get some because I'm out of it, but is this like Egyptian licorice tea. I can't remember the name of the company, but I got it at the grocery store, so you can get it there. I am one of those weirdos who loves black licorice, so I love that tea. It's because when you drink it, there's like no taste, but then once you swallow it, you get like an aftertaste of black licorice. It's so good. I love that tea. And that's decaf, so I can drink that at any time. I have found as I got older, I need to watch when I drink my caffeine, so there you go. Okay. Angelia at Read and Reread has a couple questions for me. I remember I was going to go back to the end of that one. And her one is, if you had a non-book channel, what would it be about? If you had asked me last year, I probably would have said it might be some kind of history related one, because I do really love history. That's what my degree is in. Now it would be politics, current events, the end of the world as we know it. I have a lot of political views. My husband and I have very different political views in some ways. And it would be a political one and what's going on in the nation right now. And which author do you hope has a surprise new release this year? And I had to think about this one too, because there are a lot of authors who I know have releases coming out, but a surprise one, I would say Maggie O'Farrell. I'm ready for another Maggie O'Farrell book. And I don't think she has one on the horizon, but there you go. Okay, I have 3 questions from commenter Vegas Hermit. The first one was, what books made you the person you are now? So first of all, I will say the Ramona Quimby books, because those are the ones that got me into reading. I loved them. I love Ramona. I was Ramona when I was a kid. I loved her. And what's really cool about the Ramona books is I am of an age where when I was the age reading Ramona books, Beverly Cleary was still writing them. So I kind of aged out of the Ramona books before she was done writing them. So when I had my daughter and I started reading books to her, there were 1 or 2 Ramona Quimby books I hadn't read yet. So I read those for the first time with her. Let's see, the Brontes really got me into reading as an adult and really pushing myself into reading, thinking of reading as a more of a, not just a brainless thing, but like a brainless relaxing thing. And there's nothing wrong with that, but to read things that challenge you a little bit. So definitely I would say the Brontes as well. I would probably say Ramona Quimby and the Brontes, which is a very weird combination as I think about it, but there you go. And next question. What books do you wish you could read again for the first time? Mink River by Brian Doyle, because that was such a wonderful experience reading that for the first time. Definitely. And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, because that is an excellent book. Even if you think you aren't an Agatha Christie person, do read that one because it is unique among her oeuvre. And Then There Were None. And, The 13th Tale, which I have read several times because I have done so many book club discussions on it. I love that book. The first time I read it was for a book club, and I was like caressing the book afterwards. I loved it so much. So I would say those books. And this last question that I have from Vegas Herman is a really good one. It's, what draws you to your favorite genres? And it depends. it kind of depends on what's going on in my life in a lot of ways. In 2017, I read pretty much nothing but romance because I needed to know that there would be a happy ending. Starting in 28, been kind of just carrying on. For a while, it was just kind of, that's what I liked. And now I'm kind of getting into it for the same reason. Mysteries, because mysteries are about taking a moment of disorder and putting things back in order. They are fixing something that's broken or finding out the cause of something that's broken. And I don't know why. I don't know why that would appeal to me right now, but there you go. And then my other favorite genre is historical fiction. And it's just, I've always loved history. So, yes. And I love history because historical fiction is an easy, sneaky way to learn history, which I also enjoy. I think the way history is taught a lot, especially in the high school level, because the high school level, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, you're teaching to the test, is very dry, and you don't get the story side of history. And I think that reading historical fiction gives you that. So yeah, I would say there you go. And from Sarah H. Statistician, she asked she was talking about me getting into fantasy, and she wanted to know how has that been going, and are there any fantasy books I would recommend? So it has been going. It's been going fine. I am still not like a super heavy fantasy reader. I'm not to the point where I'm going to be reading, the Game of Thrones books, or I don't even think I could probably read Lord of the Rings at this point. The world building and sort of that is so different sort of thing is I'm not to that point yet. I said earlier that I had read Romantasy for the first time, and I think the reason that particular Romantasy that I read, which was Stone and Bones, worked for me was because it was set in Nordic folklore, which I'm already familiar with. So I would say I'm still kind of like just above a beginner level at fantasy. As for fantasy books that I would recommend, let's see. I am currently rereading Wicked, and it's interesting because I read it when it came out 30 years ago and just loved it. And I'm reading it again, and it is a very different experience. I'm not saying I'm not loving it. It's just hitting much differently, and that's a combination of it being a reread, being 30 years later, and being read now. But I do like that. I do think I very carefully recommend the book Wicked. You have to realize that it is not, Wicked the movie / musical and Wicked the novel are two very different things. And if you try to compare them, it's not gonna work. I hated the musical Wicked the first time I saw it because I wanted it to be like the book. But you can't have that many orgies in a musical. You just can't. There's a lot of other stuff besides orgies in that book. But once I kind of got over that, I saw it for a second time because my daughter wanted to see it. It was a better experience because I knew what to expect. And the movie, I think the movie is a perfect movie. I didn't have great love for the musical, for the stage show. I enjoyed it enough the second time, but the movie is fantastic. Which is, as far as fantasy, which is really interesting that fantasy is like one of those genres that I'm not comfortable with, because my favorite story as a child from the time I was 2 years old has been The Wizard of Oz, which is a fantasy story. So whatever. I probably am more comfortable in the closer to the magical realism side of things than the fantasy side, but I am very slowly kind of working my way more into fantasy. So I don't know if I can give really any recommendations for anything more fantasy-ish than that, but there you go. Okay, Hello Bookworm has asked me several questions, and I'm going to save that one for the last of hers. Okay, what was my favorite book as a child? It was not The Wizard of Oz. I did not read The Wizard of Oz until I was much older. I had a picture book of it that I liked, but really it was the movie, and then I read the book, and the book's not very good. The movie's much better. Definitely the Ramona Quimby books, loved those. When I was really little, my mother would read The Velveteen Rabbit to me, which is probably not super appropriate for the age that she read it to me, but I did enjoy that. But yeah, it's the Beverly Cleary books, especially Ramona, that really stuck with me. Next question. Are there any books you collect multiple editions of? I have a couple books of multiple editions that it's not intentional. I mean, if I had more bookshelves, then yes, I probably would have some books I would collect multiple editions of. You've seen my book situation. I don't have room for multiple books of the same title at this point in time. So, but if I would definitely go for things like Bronte novels. I would collect multiple editions of. If I still, so I had the original copy of Wicked, right? I don't know where it is. My daughter says it's in her room, which is troubling for two reasons. One is I will never see it again. And two, I don't think she's ready for it. But again, she's not reading anymore. So what difference does it make? But like if I had that, I now have the 30th anniversary edition. I would keep both of those. But I'm not set up to be a book collector of special editions, multiple editions as it is, which is unfortunate. Next question. Are you a paperback or hardcover girly and why? Generally, I don't have a preference between paperback and hardcover other than price, maybe. If it is an especially big book, and for whatever reason, I'm not reading it as an e-reader, I would go paperback because it's a little bit lighter. But I think if I were to purchase a book, I'd always go for the paperback. But I as far as the reading experience, I don't really have a preference between the two. I prefer, like my ideal way of reading is print. I just can't always do that with some of my eye issues. So, if print is too small or if the page are starting to yellow, then I have to do e-reader. But between print and paperback, there's not really that much of a difference for me. Okay. What are the most cherished books in your collection? Let's see. Cherished books in my collection. A lot of them are this series. So I am keeping they're paperback of print. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm keeping print copies of like all the Agatha Christie's that I read in paperback. All the Louise Penny books I read in paperback, which is ironic because I don't actually read them in paperback. I read them on my e-reader because I can't wait for the paperback version to come out, but then I buy it again in paperback. And probably my Shakespeare books. Now, I do have an irritation with those, which is Othello, because I can't get the trade paperback copy of Othello. I can only get the mass market paperback. So if you see my Shakespeare books, there's this one that's really short, and I don't like that, but I'm keep looking at that. But as for most cherished books, some of my nonfiction books, I would say I tend to probably cherish a bit more because for some reason, I don't know why I put that value on the nonfiction books, but there is that. But I have to be selective about the books that I keep because my husband won't get me another bookshelf, although I'm threatening to buy two if he doesn't get me one for Valentine's Day, which is next week, and I don't think it's happening. So I might end up getting two, but then I have to put them together, and I am just not inclined to do that. So we got to figure something out. If I had more room for books, I think some of these questions would be a little bit different. But I love this last question she asked me because it is so funny. Did the way Fiyero treat books in the Shiz library hurt you as much as it hurt me? So funny. So like I saw clips of that before it, so I knew it was happening. I knew they were going to dance on books, and I saw memes about it and everything. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'm going to be fine. Like I didn't even think it was going to be an issue. When I was at the theater and I saw that, my palms start to sweat. I could what did I do to the book? And I was like, and then like the bookshelves that went around like made me dizzy. I mean, I love that scene. That's a fantastic scene. But yeah, don't dance on books. Don't do that. It hurt me. It hurt me. It did. It did very much hurt me. As much as it hurt you, hello bookworm. I am with you there. Okay. And go down here. It says question from B Heart. I should have done this one first, but I didn't. And that is, what made you decide to start a channel? A couple things. One, I just started watching a lot of booktube, and for me, I was watching booktube and commenting, but it just wasn't the same. It didn't feel like a conversation until I started my channel. But also, my family doesn't care about books. I've already gone through that. They don't want to hear what I'm talking about. I tried talking about books with my husband, and he's like, why would I read a book? My husband, who actually thinks that Clive Cussler is a better writer than Harper Lee. That is actually a thing my husband has said, but whatever. So having more people to talk to with books. I mean, I have Bookish Best Friend and we always talk about books and that's great, but I wanted to have more. And there you go. So that's what made me start a channel. Plus, I think it's, the ALEXA has something to say apparently. I feel like it has been ultimately a good thing for me to do. So, and I'm really enjoying it. And I don't have, who knows what the future brings, but I don't have any plans to stop. And then I have a question. My penultimate question is from Angie is Puzzled. What are your top 5 or whatever number you feel like giving favorite books of all time? I don't know if these are going to be 5. I'm going to list some books that when you say, what are your favorite books? I'm going to tell you. Mink River, 13th Tale, Kindred, Tenant of Wildfell Hall, Jane Eyre. I'm going to say there's 5. There. Like if you were to say, quick, give me your favorite books, those are the ones I would say. It's really hard for me to rank books because ranking involves comparison and I like different kinds of books, so it's hard. But if you were to ask me 5, there you go. There's 5. It might be different if you ask me tomorrow, although it would still be Mink River in there and a couple of them. But yeah, there's 5 books that are favorites of mine that I recommend. Okay, now for last question, I'm going to go up here to Mariandria again. Tell us 2 truths and a lie. Give us time to guess the lie. Then tell us which is the lie at the end of the video. I am not going to tell you at the end of the video because I'm asking you the question at the end of the video. I am going to tell you what the lie is in my weekly wrap up. So, the truths and a lie. Okay, I've come up with it. 1, I have 5 older siblings. 2, the very first car that I drove, that I had use of to drive, was a Thunderbird. And 3, I have been thanked in the acknowledgement of a published book. Those 3, which one is a lie? You got to come back on Saturday to know which one it is. So there you go. Anyway, I've been at this for almost an hour. So thank you all. Thank you all who gave me questions. If I missed any, let me know. If you all of a sudden have a question you want to ask, let me know too, and I'll answer it. I'm trying to get back up to speed after my January that didn't go the way I had planned for it to go. So yeah, thank you all for watching me the past 2 years. And I've really enjoyed it and I do appreciate all of you. So again, thank you very much. Like, subscribe, join my Discord, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.